There have been dozens of video game consoles over the decades, with some being the really popular and super well-known ones like the Nintendo Switch, while some others are not as much, like the Panasonic 3DO, and everyone often discusses the technologies that power these dedicated gaming devices, and there are no shortages of videos and articles that get into them at great lengths. But what about the external hardware that encased those incredible technologies that powered the many developers' visions and dreams that took millions of interactive entertainment enjoyers on so many unforgettable journeys? So as mentioned, their internal hardware has long and often been discussed at length. But for too long, the look and feel of those consoles have been too overlooked. Well, no longer. It's about time we recognize some of those incredible external designs and shells that those dream machines have so come to be remembered and known by. So then, it's time to ask, who's had the most unforgettable and most beautiful external look and design that has ever come to grace any console owner's TV stand then? Well, that's what this list exists for. To answer that very question, and to bring together the 10 most gorgeous and visually pleasing video game console designs ever onto a single list, and without regards to their sales success or whether they contain, literally, at the time of their lifespan, the greatest or least spectacular gaming technologies for their generation too. So with all that having been said, let's get going with our 10th place finisher, and the one who almost actually totally and completely missed this train. Haha. So then, who do we have at our number 10 spot? It's going to be one of the most cutesy and adorable gaming consoles to ever be conceived and produced. In fact, it was so all about that cutesiness and adorableness that it came with its very own built-in basket handle to amplify that cutesiness all the more. Right away. So many of you have already figured out which console it is that I've been hinting at. Yes, I've been talking about the Nintendo GameCube. Releasing way back on September 14th of 2001, it went on to sell a pretty disappointing 21.74 million units. Maybe that less than stellar sales number was because of the lower capacity of those tiny mini DVD discs that they decided to go with, as well as perhaps just that choice to go with those mini discs, maybe already putting off a lot of developers and consumers in the first place with it all. Or maybe it was because Nintendo was apparently still playing that arms race game with all the other console manufacturers at the time. And speaking of those other console manufacturers, by the time that the GameCube launched, many had heard of and were eagerly anticipating that new kid on the block and new major player in this console's war, who just happened to have some really deep pockets as well, by the way, and who had a powerhouse of a first console that was going to come out on the exact same day as the GameCube's launch to really steal a lot of that cutesy little cube's thunder. Well, after this GC generation, that was when Nintendo wisely pivoted and exited the arms race, if you ask me, and seemingly put all their eggs in the innovation basket, and that was how they've been able to still succeed big in this ongoing consoles war, and succeed in their own way with unique and very different, or perhaps I should say differently focused consoles, like the Wii, the Switch, and the DS. But as far as how its looks went, it certainly belongs on this list for having such a genius of a name and design, with that incredibly unique and adorable-looking exterior shell, which was absolutely and totally appropriate for Nintendo, I'd say, since they had already been seen as a really family-friendly brand for ages by the time their little GameCube had arrived. Besides that over-the-top cutesiness, though, it just also had a very minimalistic, less is more and super clean appearance that has actually aged very nicely and has also become quite timeless, as well as it having always been a very memorable look too. Well, maybe it was a mistake, after all, to place the GameCube at this opening spot and lowest position on this list. I'm getting cold feet and thoughts of reconsideration already about this 10th place finisher. And here I was joking at the start about how it almost completely and totally missed this entire train ride. But I guess I'm just going to stick with what I had already decided on at the earlier stages of this list planning and when it had first came together. So our 10th place finisher was already a very interesting and very spectacular one. Well then, who's going to be this first contestant to take us just one step higher on this list of all the absolute best that this industry has ever seen? Which, by the way, has been just one of not only dozens, but actually hundreds and hundreds of attempts and unknowns who have tried their hands in this home video game console's endeavor and incredibly difficult undertaking. So then, who is going to be the next one of the very few that we not only have actually heard of, but who has actually also made it onto this coveted top 10 list of all the very best ones that there have ever been. Well, this next place finisher is going to be the world-famous PlayStation 4 gaming console. And know right away that I am only going to be considering and focusing on that original one too. So no design revision versions, no Pro Model Edition, only that first and original iteration, and releasing pretty far back on November 15th of 2013. It went on to sell a solid total of 106 million units as of December 31st, 2019. So while its sales numbers were always a solid hit right away, and from the get-go, believe it or not, its looks actually weren't that way with me. Now, there were some people who did like it immediately, but I just wasn't one of those people. Its look had to actually grow on me over time, and grow it did. When I was finally able to fully wrap my mind around that incredible genius of design, it did finally dawn on me about what a unique and awesome design that it really had been all along, but because it was just so different, so radical and so out there at that beginning, I just didn't really know what to make of it at first. But the most important part is that all that atypicalness of it was always so in a positive or great way. And the best way to describe its design was probably that it was so quote-unquote out of this world, that even the millennials and Gen Xers, who had seen quite a few number console designs up until that point in time, had never seen anything like it before, not even anything that was even remotely close or as ingeniously designed and original as that. Who would have thought that making a parallelogram or to use a trapezoidal shape for a video game console design would work out so ingeniously and spectacularly well? Well, obviously, the designer of Sony's fourth home gaming console did, and he has left the world in awe with its amazing look since its unveiling many years ago now. And it's been such a marvel of an artistic piece of work and accomplishment for this world to enjoy and to see ever since.